educational content is killing your brand. Um, I mean, what I've been noticing is for the longest time, the people who are being seen and paid for who they are and recognized and known for the thing that they do, they share less information and they share less education in terms of value, and they share more opinions in terms of value and stories. And because people remember more of these stories than they remember the information, especially in the day and age we live in, when there's a lot of information and a lot of it easily accessible for free everywhere on AI, that when I hear information, we skip through it unless this information is provided with a twist.
Yeah.
So if you want to provide information, it needs to be done with a twist. And this twist is usually your story, your experience with it. So instead of saying how to, it's how I. It's always the how I. The how I is going to get people in. The how to is AI's job now.
This is Let's Make Waves podcast. I'm your host, Rana Al-Basri Mawad, and I believe that we're all here to make waves. I created this podcast to help you build your brand by sharing with you tools, resources, and strategies to gain professional authority for better business opportunities. If you want to get unstuck, you've come to the right place. Let's get started.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of Let's Make Waves podcast with me, Rana Al-Basri Mawad. And this week's episode is going to be a blast. If you are a female founder, this episode is for you. My guest this week is Marina Girgis, a brand strategist, personal brand coach, speaker, and world traveler. You know, you can easily call her your brand doula. Marina helped many female founders approach their business and brand with more conviction, clarity, and confidence, where she basically helps them in rebirthing their brand, aligning opportunities, and restructuring their business and their offers in a way that lights their soul on fire. By combining her unique background and experience working with international brands like Estee Lauder, Victoria's Secret, New York Fashion Week, as well as celebrity clients like Mishisha Dillinger and Veronica Gabay, Marina uses a unique and holistic approach to building your brand, from ideas to messaging and from aesthetic to content. So many things are under her belt: human design, creative strategization, mastering storytelling, work and cycle synchronization, and so many other unique strategies are all under her belt. Marina believes that every female founder deserves to be seen and paid for who she is by having a brand that reflects her style, personality, and vibe. I won't keep you waiting any longer. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Marina, I'm so happy that you're here with us today. And I know we've been trying to do this for a while. So finally, our schedules have aligned. And the reason why I'm excited to have this conversation with you, because I really want everybody who's watching us and who's listening to us to see your perspective when it comes to personal brand. So I want to start with quoting you first. You say in all of your content, almost all of your content, even on your website, that you believe that to create impact and to create income through the power of personal brand, it can happen all while living your most aligned life. You even say that to create impact and to live vivaciously, you can build your true to self personal brand. So when I read something like this, I automatically think that you have your own definition of personal brand, almost your own definition. So can you tell us more about that?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Rana, of course, for having me here today. I'm super excited for this conversation. And let's dive into this idea of personal branding. So for the longest time, I worked, I felt like my priority in life is to create a beautiful life, and I thought work is secondary. And we all grow up thinking that our work is primary.
Yeah, especially in our culture.
Of course, Middle Eastern culture, you work really hard to enjoy the beauty of what you've worked hard for. And for some reason, that never aligned for me. Like, I worked in corporate for a little bit. Before that, I was a freelancer. I did multiple things. I'm the kind of person who tried so many things, all within the realms of beauty, art, and fashion, creative direction. But I've put my fingers in many pies. I tried many things before I landed on entrepreneurship. And I didn't know at that time that what I was doing was creating this philosophy around building a personal brand that allows me to live the life that I want. All that I was thinking about young Marina, I was thinking, oh my God, like, how can I maximize my earnings doing what I love to create a life I love? So I wasn't thinking, I want to maximize my earnings so that I can build a bigger business, so that I can do this, so
Exactly.
I
The
can
common
own
thing.
more things. It was huge. And like, for the longest time, I know my parents are always like, Marina's always crazy. She's been crazy. Like, that's what they call it, right? Crazy. But crazy is what? Crazy is believing that there is an alternative way to do life and to do things. So when I was building my business, I noticed like every decision I made, and it wasn't super like put down as a philosophy at that time. It was just every decision I made was to help me travel more and to have more freedom. I always thought about any call that was on my calendar. What is this call doing to me? Can I make this money a different way? Can I do a masterclass? Can I do a group program? How can I maximize my life and minimize anything that takes me away from living a beautiful life, and all while also creating the impact? So it was a lot of trial and error for me. And then I realized that was attracting a lot of people to my brand, because they're like, wait, I am exhausted, I am tired, I feel like I'm chasing every dollar, even though I left the corporate world. And that's the funny thing, Rana. Like, we think we build a business and
Yeah,
then all of a sudden it's magic and that we have the life that we dreamed of, only to realize we've created a golden cage, something very similar to being in a
in
corporate
corporate. Yeah.
environment. And now we've just glorified it into, you are your meanest own boss. So you become so mean to yourself instead of someone else being mean to you
So
and
true.
working you hard. So I was like, no, there must be a different way for us to do this. And I've truly, I feel like I am living what I am sharing, in terms of everything I've created was to support my ability to have freedom, to even select the kind of clients I want to work with. And I select them through my personal brand. And that's what I want people to know, is that the messaging you put out there helps you select better caliber clients and the kind of clients you want to work with, making your life overall easier.
Absolutely. And I want to stop at that point because it's very, very interesting. Now, almost everyone who talks about building a business, you think of course, the pain point of your target audience or your clients or anything, and then you create the product or the service to meet that point. And then it's like, the reverse, when you reverse engineer it, you're the last one on the list. What you're telling me here is that, no, I put my goals first, and of course I honed in all of my skills, and then I kind of
Yeah.
packaged it in such a way where I am meeting the client's needs, but it has to be in alignment. How can, like, when did you realize that there has to be that alignment first before, or for you to create that business or to create that life?
That's beautifully said. So, yes, to your point, a lot of people start with, what do other people want, not what I want to do.
Yeah.
For me, it goes back to that time when I quit my corporate job and I realized, I mean, I cannot do this. Like, I mean, when you're working in a corporate environment, I was working as a designer. Every part of my decision making was for the company, the business. And then I realized when I got out to start entrepreneurship that everyone was saying, you need to create something that people want. And I was thinking, like, if I show myself like what I'm doing as an example of what I can share with the world and what is possible, then that is a win-win, right? Because
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm sharing my purpose and what I believe in and my philosophy, And therefore, now I'm getting people who want to do something similar. I'm not saying the same. So not all my clients obviously are into traveling full time and living the way that I live, but a lot of them want more freedom and choice and to be relaxed in their business and to have a business that lights them up and to, even at the bare minimum, to do things that they're excited about. So once I tapped into that for myself, I found that more people want this. The problem is that we go out there and we keep just doing whatever that's working and that has been working for years
It
because it
becomes
is
comfortable.
scary.
Yeah, it becomes
Exactly.
comfortable.
Yeah. And then it's scary, right? To say like, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I don't know if people want this, but I mean, what is the point of building a personal brand if we're not sharing what is deeply personal to us, what we believe in, the philosophy that we believe in, the ideology, whatever you want to call it. I like calling it like my teaching philosophy or my life philosophy. And that becomes the brand.
Yeah.
And then it's unique. No, and that's why I say true to self personal brand, because that is so unique to me. Like you cannot mistake in my brand for someone else because of the things that I say, the words that I use, like even the word vivacious. Like I've made
Very
that my
unique.
word.
Yeah, it is. And you do. It does resemble a lot of the things that you do. And what I really love is that you say true to self, and whoever, I mean, you guys, you have to follow Marina, especially on Instagram, where you see she is true to herself, but it's not the oversharing. Because, a lot of people will get scared. Like, I don't want to show my kids. I don't want people to know my personal life. It has nothing to do with that. But you were able to create that distinctive separation without losing yourself. And it's a really hard balance. Like, how do people
Mm.
figure that out?
Yeah,
It's
that
scary.
one's really hard. It's so scary. To your point, really scary. And I think people mistaken vulnerability with oversharing.
Mm,
It is not. I receive a lot of messaging. Thank you for your vulnerability, for being open. So for me, my process is, and what I teach my client is to first integrate, process, integrate, and then share. Because what happens is a lot of people want to be vulnerable and open and true to self in quotation, and they end up just oversharing. And then I've read this somewhere, that these are not my words. Someone said the vulnerability hangover. And then you
mm.
get hungover the whole time, checking your phone anxiously, saying like, did I overdo it? Did I overshare? Did I, that feeling? I don't know if you've experienced that
Oh
before,
yeah,
Rana.
absolutely. And you're like, how can I come back from that?
And
Especially
you
if it goes
can't.
downhill. Yeah, and you
Sometimes
can't.
you can't. Emotionally, you can't. I mean, the internet always forgets. Like, we think it's more permanent than it is. Whatever, you take down your post, like it's over. People forget about everything. That's also another thing, right? People forget about everything within a couple of hours, within a couple of days. Like, sure, in the moment it feels heated. It feels like the most important thing in the world. That dissolves really fast. That is also another thing that I always think about. Most of the things dissolve really fast. So it's not about what you do today, not about the thing that you do one day. It's about the things that you continuously do over a long period of time. Like you and I, we were talking, Rana, at the beginning, and we said that we've been following each other for so long. You
Yeah.
know my brand philosophy and what I stand for because you've known me for so long. And you see, Marina's been consistent. Marina's been traveling for this many years. Marina's been living her brand's philosophy for this many years. So I think another thing that we are losing within this space that removes this like true to self part is that now personal branding is huge, right? Like everyone now talks about personal branding.
Yeah, it's the new kale.
Right. Like exactly. 5 years ago when you and I were talking about this, it was still like, guys, please build a personal brand. Please, I
Yeah.
beg you. And everyone's like, why should I invest in personal? I remember like people would come to me and say, so are you a business coach? And I was like, well, I mean, it's sort of kind of like it, but it's about you, the person. And people didn't think that was as, like
And not only
important.
that, I'm not an influencer. No,
Oh,
you
yes.
influence. You don't need to be an influencer. You create influence. I remember these conversations. Amazing.
Exactly. And thank you for bringing that point up about influence. So when we are showing up in this way, authentically, true to self, but not oversharing, we create influence.
Mm.
But when we're oversharing, we become just influencers or whatever, people on the internet who are, putting out their dirty laundry. And like, there are people that you follow and you're just like, oh, here she goes again, complaining about whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, today's a different thing, tomorrow's a different thing. There needs to be integrity within the brand. So if I'm sharing something vulnerable, like let's say I talk about my partnerships and the challenges I'm facing in my partnership, I am consciously choosing to share this part of my life because I know a lot of women experience this, especially hyper independent women who maybe are, been in relationships for years or still getting in a new relationship. So I know that my audience cares about this. Okay.
Yes,
The second thing is I care about it and it feels really good for me. And I'm choosing what to share from that. I'm not choosing the messy part as it's happening. I'm choosing the message that I want to share from this. And we need to humanize ourselves because, I mean, the internet becomes so
I
not so
agree with you.
human after a while.
I agree with you. What I really love about your approach, and I'd love for you to tell us more about it, is that it started with that spark you already told us, but then you kind of put a science to it, especially because you focus. I mean, your material anybody can use it, but you focus on female founders, on women-led businesses. So the science that you brought to the table to kind of balance that, the emotion, but there's also science backed, is that you kind of build your personal brand by human, how can I say it? You talk a lot about the human driven brand and marketing strategies. So you kind of integrate the human design into it. So
Mhm.
it doesn't become all that, things that are up in the air. There is also a science behind it, and especially for female-led businesses. And I know from myself, I took the quiz that you had, the personalized brand quiz, and it's like finally I started to understand a lot of things, not only about myself, but also how I can use my strengths, my personal thoughts, my ideas and everything, but also my strengths to better serve within my business, within my partnerships and all of that. So can you tell us more about the importance for the human design element and building a personal brand around that?
That's a good one. So with the human design, like I am by no means no expert in human design. I actually collaborated with one of my clients who I helped. So I discovered that through her. And this is amazing because as you're doing this, you keep learning new ways
Yes.
and new things. I've always been into astrology, for example, and then I saw human design and I was like, oh my God, wait, like she did a guide for me. And when she did this guide, she told me, Marina, you are an emotional authority. And then she shared with me different things. And she said, when you're making a decision, I recommend that you sleep on it. And I remember like all throughout my entrepreneurship, especially early entrepreneurship, like I was struggling with making decisions. And I thought I was just indecisive or I make things complicated. And then when I discovered that I'm an emotional authority, which means you have to sleep on it to get the clear yes or no. I started to do that. I started to tell people, can I sleep on it? Or I'll leave my email, like I'll put it back on unread, whatever, send it back to myself or something like that, and then come back to it and see if this aligns with me. But in the past, I used to be so eager. I would just say yes and then discover that I'm so exhausted in my business. I would say yes to every IG live, every podcast, every trip, every client, everything because when you're a business owner, you're opportunistic, so
Of
it's like
course.
you want to take in more and more and more, and you end up having a plate full of things that you don't want to do. So when I discovered that through my client, because she offered me this guide, I was like, oh my God, how can we have more business owners specifically use their human design into their branding? Because not only does it tell you how to make decisions, it also tells you your strongest and most natural communication style. And while I can sit with a client, if I work with you one-on-one, I'll be able to pinpoint like you do this, this, and this, of course, because we are able to see our client. But now if someone was like randomly like, browsing and they're like, why am I so exhausted when I communicate? Why can I not show up on video and just record like most people do? It is because that's not like how you naturally are. You need to show up. That's not your natural strengths. So I love using these extra, like, I would call them self-discovery tools, just like the personality test, just like astrology, just like any of those tools out there to help you see like where is your innate and natural way of showing up? How do you like to make decisions? So with that quiz specifically, by the way, you made me like feel inspired to bring it back. I know it's on my website, but somehow it doesn't send the full result.
Yeah, but I absolutely loved it. I'll tell you why, Marina, because the minute I read it, it's like, oh, okay, that made sense.
Mm.
And the minute something makes sense, it's like you start um doing things, especially the repetitive things in business. You start doing it, you're like, okay, let me consider doing this a little bit different. I read this about myself.
Yes.
Let me test it out, like test the water. And then slowly I felt that certain things that I had in my mind that was very clouded, it became effortless. And I was
Mm.
telling a friend of mine, and she tried it, and she's like, "Oh my God, I can create content effortlessly now for my clients." She's a copywriter, and I was like, exactly. It just there's a shift. It gives you kind of a shift, and you're like, it's like something the mirror comes, but without the judgment.
Yes.
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 And I think that kind of feeling is very it holds a lot of women back, because at least for myself, you think of all the different bad scenarios before you take a decision. Like, if
Mhm.
I do this, is this going to impact that? Will somebody like this? Or so I personally liked it because it gave me clarity on certain things that was stopping me from moving forward. I
Mhm.
love that. I honestly love that. I really think you should get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very inspired. Now this is something I need to add to my to-do list this week.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So, you have shared some things that I found a little bit controversial
Let's
on
get
your
into it.
business, controversial or personal brand controversial on your Instagram. But one of them, I agree, and a part of me tries not to agree with it, but it's really funny. You talked, and you had few posts about not all coaches or business leaders or everything like that, when it comes to content and content creation and storytelling, don't always default to information type content. Don't always default to things that you're
Yes.
the default part. You talked a lot about the default part. You talked about are you asking people enough before you create your content? Are you thinking about not just, I need to do storytelling type of content? No, I need to think about, where do I want to go with my story? How do I get, if that's the end result, how do I build that story up? And when I was going through it, it does make sense. It's counterintuitive. It does make sense, but it also helps, not just on social media, but if you're a business owner, it helps in you creating your products or your the services, creating your what. Can you tell us about
Yeah.
mindset shift when it comes to creating value, basically?
I think I know the post you're referring to. I also have a podcast episode on it, which is
Yeah.
I think it's called Educational Content is Killing Your Brand. Um, I mean, what I've been noticing is for the longest time, the people who are being seen and paid for who they are and recognized and known for the thing that they do, they share less information and they share less education in terms of value, and they share more opinions in terms of value and stories. And because people remember more of these stories than they remember the information, especially in the day and age we live in, when there's a lot of information and a lot of it easily accessible for free everywhere on AI, that when I hear information, we skip through it unless this information is provided with a twist.
Yeah.
So if you want to provide information, it needs to be done with a twist. And this twist is usually your story, your experience with it. So instead of saying how to, it's how I. It's always the how I. The how I is going to get people in. The how to is AI's job now. So I was feeling that a lot of the people that I was helping, when they made that shift, going from, instead of saying like how women can start investing today in
Mm.
today's stock market, whatever, she started saying like how she got rich when she invested back when the stock market went down like a few, years ago. So this is how we're reframing, like the information to be about your experience. And I mean, this is the core, right, of like why we want to build a personal brand. And I think we've been doing personal branding in the way where we share the information and we share it with our voice and our experience, and that's enough. I think that's no longer going to be enough. And I think I love that you called it controversial. I just think I lead my business very intuitively. And again, that is also controversial because we've
Yeah.
always been leading business in the masculine sense. And by the way, this is not a diss to the masculine. Love it. Like I have my logical side. It, helps me like create money, save money, do all the things. But I also have the side of me that feels into things before they happen. You're a mom, you have
Yeah.
this, right? It's built
Yeah.
into you.
True.
And I feel like I feel into certain things. It's almost like we have an inside data analyst, and that's like, okay, like I see this is where everyone's going, and and if you trust that, and I know it sounds crazy to trust that, but if you trust that, your own inner data analyst that's telling you the world is going this way, and you create content from that place about your story, about the shifts that you're seeing, rather than information that you know and the things that you're really good at, I promise you that puts you in a leadership position in this space, even if your following is small, because it's not about that. People want these voices, the people who are tapping into something bigger, something more nuanced. And I think the nuance is the most important thing, because you can tell your story and you can tell the story about how I went from corporate to building, a multi six-figure business. Cool. We've all heard this story, rags to riches, right? But what we need is the nuance
I
of
agree
the
with you. I
story.
agree with you. And these tips that you've just talked about, it's not just for for founders or entrepreneurs. These are even for
Of
professionals
course.
out there, working professionals, because today I don't know how powerful your CV is. Of course, companies would still want certain skills or skill sets, but I agree with you 100% when it comes to positioning yourself, the positioning part. Isn't it a bit now, especially between AI and there's social media, is it easy to find that voice? Is it easy to find that logic, or do you think it's becoming harder and harder from the way you worked with your clients?
I think it's easy because it allows us to just tap back into the inner knowing. And again, it might sound woo to a lot of people, but if we just change our mindset from like this sounds woo, this doesn't abide by the book of, there's no book of personal branding, really. It's personal. This is what I want to remind people all the time. It is so personal.
Yeah.
If you tap back into the personal within the integrity that we talked about before, it is easy because you're pulling from what you've experienced. But a lot of us want to like give it like more flavor, so we go and give it like the backup of whatever, like the information. And I think it's easy when we're tapped into the voice. But I think the hard part, okay, so it's easy to do that because the information is within, right? You don't need to outsource anything. You don't need
Mm.
to look for anything outside of yourself. But the hard part is actually listening to what's happening and putting your story together. I think that's the hard part that I see with a lot of my clients specifically. And maybe you've noticed that too with the people that you're helping, is that then how do I put all of this together? I have so much to share, so much to talk about. How do I put it all together?
Yeah, and this is where the strategy comes in, where you're like,
Exactly.
okay, we need to move things around. I know it's going to be all woo in the beginning, but there are certain things that should come in the forefront before other things, for
Exactly.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I now that we kind of gone through this, especially with really understanding that to from your point of view, and I really love that, is that there's the personal brand, as you said, is very personal. So there is the science part of it. There are certain rules that you really need to go through it, especially if you're building a reputation, especially if you want
Mhm.
people to trust you, be it for you to advance in your career or for you to to get your business off the ground and moving. And part of that trust and building a reputation is understanding yourself. So it has to come from within,
Yes.
understanding what are your goals, and basically start having a voice. And this is where I want to, get more in depth with you about your approach for having a voice, because it's like the voice plus the image,
Mm,
we've known each other for a while, so I know that you used to have a lot of one-on-ones and you would help a lot of female founders through this. But now you've shifted to you're kind of grown into a new thing, which is a new experience where women can do that in the collective.
yes.
And you still have your one-on-ones, but you really believe that the collective has a bigger power being in a group. So can you tell us more about why today more and more women should be, within a collective, and in your business, how do you help women in the collective
Yeah, that's
through
beautiful.
the services that you do? Yeah.
Yeah, I've just discovered over the last like 5 years that women, specifically women, but in general, all people thrive in community. I mean, this is just our essence, right? We've been in communities, like our ancestors like created in community, grew in community. And then we kind of just, like when online businesses boomed, more and more people started to build in isolation. And what happens when in isolation, you are constantly just talking to yourself? You are maybe even talking to people, but virtually. But most of the time, you're just talking to yourself. You're hearing your own voice and it's reflected back to you. And it's not always the truth. That's the
True.
thing. It's not always the truth. And even when you're reflecting back, like let's say you are living with a partner, you even have a business partner, like whatever it is, romantic or not. You have a few friends that you meet and talk to your business about. It's not the same as when you are in groups doing the same thing, like having the same end goal, which is I want to create an impactful business, personal brand around my purpose, and I want my whole business to light me up, and I want to live a beautiful life, because that is the power of like then attracting a community that is aligned in values and in vision, and then putting all these women together and seeing them reflect back to each other. So one of the biggest things I learned, to your point, like I started introducing, I used to do group programs as well, but only online. And for the last few years, I mean, I've had this vision of bringing women together in a retreat. I love traveling. And I was like, what if I combined like my love for personal branding, my love for traveling, and, all the years of experience I've had traveling the world, and made and curated rather an experience where they can come together and do this work in person. Little did I know what I was doing when I hosted my first retreat, which was actually in Mexico in February. Okay. So it was this year. It finally happened. I'm finally doing them. I'm doing actually going big, like 3 this year. But when I was in Mexico, there were many moments where I was looking around the room and just seeing the power of having all these women in the room, because the kind of things that they were sharing, oh my God, Rana, like the kind of things that these women were sharing to each other, it was just like, it was almost like just dropping all the veils, all the masks, all the I need to look successful in social media in order to be loved, and like in order to be followed, in order to be paid, in order to keep my whatever career, whatever it is, the things that we tell ourselves. It was just a very powerful moment. I was watching and I was like, I don't know what I just did here, but
You
whatever it
opened
is,
Pandora's box.
I really did. Like, I mean, people were crying to each other, and not that this is like the essential for this, but it is like finally they have space to express. Finally, they have space for another person to hold them and say, I feel you. I know what you're going through. You're not alone. I've been hating my business for the last 4 years. I've literally had people say they've been just out of love with their business. I was like, what? Because on social media, they seem perfect. And just FYI, these women were all like in the 6-7 figure, like they're doing amazing. They've been running their business for a while, and you would not think that, are these women like, struggling? Like, and we don't know that. We think we're the only ones struggling.
Yes.
And the other thing was I'm now calling it, like I was talking about it on a podcast episode, I'm calling the practice of witnessing, which basically is just like you seeing another person for who they are. There was a moment where one of the women, we were sitting there, I think it was like day 2 or 3 of the retreat, and we were just sharing, like I was walking them through an exercise of like understanding what is unique about their personal brand and their journey. And um this woman was, we were all like sharing something about her, like we were witnessing her, we were telling her we've noticed that we like this and this and this about her, because she said something about how she couldn't come up with anything, which is also crazy to me.
It's like creative block.
Totally, we cannot see each other ourselves most of the time. You know, we have normalized our brilliance, we have normalized all the things that we do with ease, our, which is like just our creative genius. We've normalized that, so now we don't see it, we don't think it's valuable, we don't even charge enough for it. And then you have these women around you who are telling you that this about you, and you're like, I don't believe you. So this woman, like, actually, she put her hands up like this and she was like, I don't want to hear this anymore. And at that point I pushed back and I said, but why? Like, this is true. And she started to like feel emotional, and then the next day she said that so much came up for her when we were recognizing her in this way, about not believing it, or maybe about not receiving that when she was, I mean, there was a lot of processing that was happening that was way outside of like even my own like capacity to handle this, but
Yeah.
this was happening for her in the background. And this was the point of release for her that she needed in order to be able to really recognize this about herself. And now I'm seeing her content and everything she's doing, like she is embracing that. She's like, I am that. And I'm not saying it's magic and this is going to happen for everyone, but when we are in communities where other people could see us, it's easy for us to then put aside the lies that our brain tells us and believe about ourselves that we are the shit.
Yeah, and
We are
you know,
it.
and especially if you're around people who kind of understand this the struggle,
Of
maybe
course.
in a different way, but especially when you're around a group of other women who have businesses and who have, you know, no matter what type of business that they have, but they're all in this journey of building something and creating
Yes.
something. You know, and to this point, I remember, especially when COVID first started, and I'm like, okay, you know, we have to, this is changing. And it just so happened that I moved countries also on the other side of the planet during that time, or a month before COVID hit. And I had to shift again. The shift in business, which is much more common than a lot of people think, entrepreneurs, there's a lot of shifts. You start one way, and then like you could be doing great, but a few years later, you're like, I need to create the shift, or you stagnate. So I to the point of the collective, I think I wouldn't have done it without my, for example, my accountability pod. We were a group of 5 women. We had to do it online because nobody could go out.
Right.
And it's like you're bouncing ideas. You're like, I'm stuck over here. And what would you do? You know, let's brainstorm together. I'm in the hot seat. What do I do? And you
Yeah.
need that. You need someone to say, no, wake up, you know,
Right.
move it, and things like that, because you sit on a mountain of experience and of ideas and everything, and you don't realize that the mountain is right below your feet. You're looking
Oh,
ahead and you feel empty, you know.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing that I've noticed like over the years with just specifically coaching women, and especially successful women, is that they always think that they don't know enough. They always think that they are not equipped enough or ready enough, whatever it is. The enoughness is never there. I don't know what is like our design, like inside, that we have something that tells us that we are never enough or never knowing enough or doing enough. Like, I mean, that has made me undercharged so many times. And I see it
We
in my
all
own
went through
self.
this. It's like
Oh my God.
the rite of passage. Like, I
Oh,
don't know why.
and it remains. And I think this is the magic of like being in community, is that you hear from other people, you know, what they're charging. You hear from other people what they're doing, what they're struggling with. and you're like, wait, okay, first of all, it's normal to feel that way. And then second of all, you get solutions or you get inspired. You see the other woman next to you charging like double for the exact or similar work that you're doing. And you're like, wait, if she can do it, I can do it. And you can ask her, how did you get there? And just that, by sharing and proxy, we're already kind of like elevating altogether. And there's so much truth to it. And I think building in isolation like works for a few years. It worked for me for the last few years. And then when I started like doing things in person, and being in communities, actually for me, it started because, so I don't know if your listeners know this, but like I live kind of an alternative lifestyle. So I don't really have a home base anywhere. I mean, the last couple of years, I decided that Greece is one of my main home bases, but I still go to like Mexico and live for like between 3 to 6 months, and then the rest in Greece or vice versa. But before that, I was also living in something called, do you know, co-living communities?
No, please tell me
So
more. I love that.
yeah, so I was in co-living communities, and I think that's where I think like maybe subconsciously these ideas were coming from. But before that, I was just traveling, and I was traveling kind of fast, I would say, where I would be in new places. I would just stay the visa period, which is 90 days. So I was traveling every 90 days to a new place, like nearby. Like I was in Latin America mainly. I did a few in Europe as well. I did one in Ecuador, and I did one in Tuscany in Italy. And these co-livings is like let's say 8 people who are doing digital work. Like they can be entrepreneurs or what you call it, like just in career.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, what is the word? Career.
Working professionals who are online. They're yeah.
Exactly. Working professionals online. So they're working online, but everyone's like digital in a way. Some people are on sabbaticals, so they're just like artists or creators or writers, or maybe like just taking a break. And it was beautiful. It was like 8 of us in most of these places. It's about 8 or 10. And you just sit there, and every day there's like this board, and you sign up to like cook for everyone, and you cook something cultural because we're all from around the world. So it was like this amazing sharing. And I was like, wait a second, like this is possible for a lot of us. And when we share, I noticed how people would come to me and be like, Marina, like, could you read my human design? Could you do my astrology? What about personal branding? Could you tell me a little bit about this? And I was exploring different things that I loved and didn't know I actually enjoyed. Like, I love hosting, like, because I was a yoga teacher. I mean, not yoga teacher, but I studied yoga. And people were like, could you hold like ceremonies for us, like cacao or moon,
Oh, wow.
like whatever stuff like. And I was like, I've never like really experienced this or done it, but like in that space, I felt safe enough to explore different sides of who I am, and then deciding like, do I want to bring this into my business? Do I not? And then some of it is just for fun and to help boost your, ego, let's say.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in community. And after doing these co-living experiences, I was like, doing retreats is like a mini version of that.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
How much is experimenting important? Be
Ah,
it in your retreats, like what you teach or what you guide your clients, but also in general when you're building a personal brand.
oh,
Because you did a lot of experimentation.
so
Some
much.
fail, some succeed. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
how important is it?
so important. So important. If there's anything, what we need to do is, I mean, specifically entrepreneurs, but even people in careers, is really to play. I mean, if you call it experimenting, call it play, but doing things and then realizing there is a chance they might not work. So I'm actually like, this is my philosophy also in my business all the time, which is beta. So everything I do it in beta. So I put it out, not perfect, and then I see if people respond to it. So the thing I've been playing with recently is with the retreats, because with retreats, you really have to be careful because you put money down. It's
Mm.
unlike a group program where people sign up and you can extend, the sign up time for people to join later, or when you're, just doing things online, you don't have much of a cost. But when you're doing in-person events and you're doing something like a luxury retreat, you have the villa cost, you have the chef, you have the gifts, you have a lot of things, And you need a community, you need a group. So you need to sign up a certain number of people. So what I've been doing is, what I've been testing with my retreats is pre-selling. So I put things out first to see if people say yes. Are they willing to put a deposit? And if I get this much deposit, then I start planning. And then I start seeing, and then I do it, and then I reiterate. So Mexico, for example, was a playground for me. And I told everyone, it's not like a secret. I told everyone, listen, you're paying a little bit less because I am experimenting. This is
It's my beta
playground.
version. Yeah.
And they were like, okay. And they were happy to do it. They're like, we think we're getting a lot of value here. We're happy to put this money down. And they came and they trusted the vision. And I learned so much. And now the next one, I'm using everything I learned to make it better. And then the third one is going to be the best, because it's going to be based on all the learnings of those, beta retreats that I'm doing. Actually, before these worked, I had one that I had to cancel because get this, I put it out with 2 months only for people to sign up, get their ticket.
That's a bad decision. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But in the moment, I was like, whatever, I'm going to put out my ideas, and I was like, oh, no wonder only 3 people signed up. And then I was like, guys, here's your money back. I'm glad you didn't book your flights. I mean, I was attracting the last minute people anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that wasn't also what I wanted to attract. So there's also a thing here, like you just have to learn from making the mistakes, right?
Yeah. And thank you so much for bringing that example, because it's really important to test things out. And I think the fear around, if it doesn't work, it's going to look bad on me. It's going to impact my reputation. Especially if you've been in a business for a while, you're a consultant or you're a coach and everything, you're like, if it doesn't work, it's going to look bad. And I love the word beta, it gives the right impression and the expectations in front of your audience. And you're like, let's see how this works. And if you are the early adopters, then you get to have all the value, because then I will know what to trim and what not to for the second version, not just in terms of price, but in terms of, like having more of me as the service or the coach or the consultant. You're gonna be able to really give feedback and how can I say this, and be the first people to say, yes, this would work. No, this doesn't work. So the reiteration is actually also to their advantage. And just to, add more ideas to this idea. A lot of writers do the same thing when it comes to their content. They drop the idea on X or on Blue Sky or whatever they feel like it. And if it works, then like, okay, then,
yes,
got attraction. Let me write a whole article and publish, or write a whole thing about it and publish.
I love that you brought this up, because this is how I use IG stories actually. So
yes, tell us more. These
I love IG stories.
Get your pencils out. Get your pencils and papers out. We have some tips here.
I love IG stories. If you follow me on Instagram, you will know that this woman here lives in her IG stories, and I really use IG stories as my playground. And I like it because 24 hours, like, they're going to disappear. You get to play, but you get direct responses in your DMs from people telling you they like it, they don't like it. I mean, most of the time it's like it, not like it. But they give you opinion. They ask you more questions. Whatever it is, you're getting responses. But also you could see what's happening with your views. I mean, I have the science down for the IG stories. Like, I've been playing with it for a while. It's the number one place where I get my clients, really. Like, I need the feed. It gives me my credibility and like whatever. And that's my main channel, plus my podcast and newsletter. But it's stories where the magic happens for me, because that's where people get to know me a little bit more. They get to know my process. And I'm just kind of circling back to the thing that we shared in the beginning about vulnerability. It also doesn't need to be your personal life. It can be just the pure, authentic process of how you do things. So me sharing like how I've been struggling with putting together some of the retreat things, or me even sharing not even the struggle, but just like honestly what it takes to put together a retreat. People have been loving this, and they're like, oh, I'd like a podcast episode on this. So it is a beautiful place to test and to share, but also humanize your brand because you're sharing more behind the scenes. So for me, it's been working in that way. And it still gives me credibility because I'm just taking them behind the scenes of like, what is it like? Like I could be like, well, the retreats are too expensive. So right now my challenge is to make them, how can I give luxury and still make a profit? That's always the challenge of doing in-person
Oh,
events.
yes. And make it accessible. It's like accessible, but luxurious, but profitable.
Hard. Yeah, exactly. So it's like taking people behind the scenes on your process. That is even like a great place for people who are like, I want to show up a little bit more authentically, vulnerably, like just take people behind the scenes. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Of
And
like
the
what's
stories are
happening.
forgiving. As you said, it's so forgiving. 24 hours,
Totally.
it's
That's
gone.
it. You don't have the hangover.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have that, and it's to the credit of the copywriters who use X. It's the same thing. I mean, there's like what, I don't know, millions of tweets per minute. It's gonna
Right.
go, but you'll at least test the ideas. Testing is one of the most important things, I believe, and I think it also helps you in basically knowing, is this really going to work? Like if you have a service, you know if it's going to work, if a person or a certain good number of people who buy in, get to experience it, go to give you feedback, tweak it as you wish. I love that. We talked a lot about the mindset, the science, the importance of building a personal brand, the building of the reputation, understanding how you can come as yourself to the table, but with the restrictions that makes you comfortable. Yeah, I like to call it curated authenticity, because you curate what you, and you're being authentic, but you create which part of the authentic thing in your life that you want to share. How do you translate that but also make it visually nice? Because a personal brand is also your image, not just your reputation, not just your name, but it's also your image. And the image is not just aesthetics, but also image in terms of everything, because now we're in a digital world. How do you show up online? So there's a really beautiful, like the way you've married these two together. It's I've seen so much from your content about this. Can you tell us more about the importance of like really honestly marrying the storytelling, the authenticity, the being yourself, being aware of your genius and knowing what to tap in, but also showing up in the right format with the right look and feel, if you want.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I feel like with this question, like it's hard to give like an overall, like one size fits all. But I would say that this has been a process that I've actually created and offered. And that's why I was doing these retreats, because I noticed that sometimes we have one part of it and then we don't have the rest, right? Which is like, okay, like I've nailed down the messaging, the voice, it's there. I know what to say, I know. But oh my God, like the pictures don't match, right? And then the colors don't match, and it's like a mess. But I'll say this thing. A lot of people are designing their brands based on a persona, right? Not themselves. It's based on what they think, like blue is trust, red is passion, whatever, like kind of like an outdated like branding. I mean, I studied fashion design, like I've studied the principles of design and everything. And like, I sometimes have to let go of all of that.
Yeah, the Mad Men era of like the color palette of brands. Yeah,
totally. Forget it. I mean, we can use color theory, of course, to make sure everything works together. But what is the color that you gravitate towards? Like, I've always loved the color red. I've always worn red lipstick. I've always had like red pops of colors. But, like somehow if I've been told that red is, I don't know, like too
it's a fiery color. It's like, too fiery.
Yeah. And then I might not use it. And now I'm like creating this brand just to fit within, like, let's say right now we're in the era of like the minimal, like black and white and whatever. Now we all look the same, right? Instead of like owning your one color that you really love, like your red lipstick, your big red glasses, whatever it is. Like, I mean, it's also about those things, right? Like the things that you love to wear and do, how you decorate your house, like all of that needs I always tell my clients, like, look at what you already do and have. You can always elevate, of course. Like if you're like, Marina, I have no taste and I'm being honest, I don't know what to do. Then of course, like you can meet with a stylist. I always recommend, by the way, working with a stylist. I know people don't think that is important. I don't know what your take is on this, Rana, but like I think personal style, it doesn't mean that you need to be the most fashionable in the world, but like having a signature style, which we've seen even with men, right? Like Steve Jobs, whatever. Like everyone knows the turtleneck, the whatever, the black. Having a signature style is really important when it comes to personal branding, even if it's just for the photos. Okay, so when I'm working with my clients, and that was like the two retreats that I did, the Birth Your Brand Baby, the idea was they meet with a personal stylist, and this personal stylist gives them a style guide based on the brand that we have, like the brand strategy that we came up with. So first, we have to start with, what is the brand? Who are you, and how do you want to be seen in this world? Like, do you want to be seen as this bold, charismatic, like bigger than life character? Then what kind of outfits does this character wear? What kind of brand did this character have? So I even love using a little bit of astrology into it because
I love that. Or tarot or something like that. I love that.
yeah, I mean, listen, like if you look at your I mean, now again, my astrology background is basic. I'm not
This
a
is fun,
professional.
guys. Yeah, this is for fun. This is just for fun.
Exactly. I'm like, if there's one of my clients, she has a lot of Leo in her chart, and I was like, you like need like bigger than life, like you need fur, and like let's play with colors and sparkles and stuff. And she was so excited, she loved that. Even when we did her photo shoot, we like made her do some lioness like posing, and she looked amazing. And she posted some of these on her stories, and people are like, it's giving Leo. And she
Yeah.
was like, see, it worked.
I really think that honestly, I really believe that like once every few years, if you this is something you don't need to do like every month or something, but every few years, especially if you're a business owner, honestly invest in a stylist and a photo shoot.
Oh my God,
The
yes.
experience itself is fun, just
It
it's
is.
like a day out, just go have fun and everything. But the reason why I say that, it's because you open that wardrobe every single day and you might have the best wardrobe on the planet, but you default to three pieces. We
Oh my
all do. Okay. Like we always default to those three pieces. And when we replace them, because we replace them with the same three pieces. So it's really important for someone else to look at your wardrobe if they're
Yes.
picking from it, and of course adding from, but that will inspire you, not just for it to have really, I'm saying this from my personal experience, but it's not just it inspires me, oh my God, I have a new combination wardrobe ideas, but it inspires me to really understand, because somebody else helps me through the process of feeling confident. Sometimes you call into your courage to feel confident in the beginning, and it takes courage to show up on camera, talk to certain clients, sell. You do a lot of sales in your business, so that really helps the process. And just to add, I am a Leo by
You are.
I
Okay.
am a Leo.
I
And I
see it.
remember, I remember my first photo shoot when I first quit corporate and went on my own. This was back in 2010. There was a stylist who came in, like the fur and all of that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not that kind of a Leo. Give me asymmetry. Give me things that are not
Right.
straight. I don't like that. I like, everything asymmetric, and I like bold cuts and things that are just, and like that in my wardrobe. And then she looks at me and she's like, I understand what kind of Leo you are.
I understand
And
the yeah.
and then she helped me go through it. It's such an experience. So to your point, I think it's one of the most
Yes.
important processes. I totally agree with you.
It's so fun, like you said. We
Oh,
need
it's so much
that.
fun.
We
Yeah.
need to play. I mean, have fun with it.
Yes, I agree. And I'm so happy we're having this conversation. And I really invite everybody who's watching or listening to go and check your material out, because for the longest time, and I'm talking from a female perspective, for the longest time, we played by a certain rule.
Mm.
And even like me, I've been on my own since 2010. And I have to tell you, it was a process to unlearn and relearn a lot of the things that you required when you're surviving corporate versus doing it on your own and trying
Yeah.
to create your own rules. So I really think that today, in this time and age, having a personal brand is so important, but it's mainly important for the person, because it's such a beautiful time of self-discovery. So I love your way of dealing with things. Marina, I can talk to you for a hundred hours, but I know that we have to wind down. So I want to end with this question, because we talked about so many things. And of course, in the show notes, everybody, you will find all the links to Marina's social media and website, and most importantly, to her upcoming retreat. I was before we record, I was telling Marina, I'm considering that Egypt retreat, because whether you're starting a business or you're, I don't know, 5 years in, having a community, sometimes you need that to just like recalculate things,
Absolutely.
relook into your business, relook into your goals. Maybe there are certain goals that you started a few years ago and they're very important, are not important anymore, and you need to realign. So all of that will be in the show notes. But I want to ask you this question as the last question, Marina. What is something that a lot of people connect with you on social media and they ask you a question, but what is something or a question that you wish people asked you when it comes to you living vivaciously and building a personal brand that helps you not only to monetize, but to grow inside and out and feel like you're living life? What is that question that people just don't ask and you just wish they would ask you?
Let me think about that one.
It's a hard one. I know.
It is a hard one. Look at you ending the show with a bang.
Just so you know, guys, I don't send questions before the show. So
Yes.
This is all raw. This is all.
I know you've been testing my on the spot thinking today. I love it.
Oh,
By the
I'm
way, this
sorry.
is my favorite way. I love just going in and just flowing.
I love that.
I think what I would like them to ask more is how I can continuously honor the voice within. Because something over the last years for me that has changed is tapping more and more and more into my true desires, the voice within. Because oftentimes we hear that we need to change something, that we need to take a different path, that we need to release the old business or a service or change careers or whatever it is. And we don't honor that. And this is how you end up living out of integrity with your true desires. And if more people were asking themselves, how can I honor the voice within? Then we are able to continuously live in alignment to what we truly want. And I truly, truly believe that this is where satisfaction comes from in life. And when you're doing that, yes, it's going to be hard, because that voice is not going to lie to you. That voice is going to tell you to leave your job. That voice is going to tell you to end something in your business that probably generates a lot of income for you. And you're going to be like, oh my God, I cannot do this because that means I'm going to lose X amount of revenue stream. So how do I trust this voice? But I've often felt like when I trusted this voice, when it said, break up with this person or leave this job, when I left my corporate job, it's an amazing job. Like a lot of people wish to have this job. Every time I've done it, I've gained way more because this voice is only leading me to what do I truly desire. And when I act on that, I end up getting way better, like way better things in life. And that's what happened actually when I shared the whole thing with canceling the first retreat and refunding people. Of course, I thought about like my reputation. Would anyone sign up for the next one? Am I even qualified? If I cannot sell this one, can I sell something else? Like, what does this mean? But like deep down, I just kept hearing like, not this one, just cancel it. Like, take the L here. Just take the L and walk away, explain to people what happened, just have ownership over your decisions. And then literally I launched the next ones like about 3 months after, and I sold out right away.
Mm.
And they were much better quality, and I had much better people signing up, and everything was much better, like more than I have imagined. And the proof is that I'm planning that retreat in Egypt at the end of the year. And I think if I didn't listen to that voice, I will constantly be doing things I hate and then living out of alignment. And then what's the point?
I agree. Oh, I love this. Yani, Marina, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yani, Marina, what can
Yeah.
I say? And I want to, before we end, I just want to say, just to add to that amazing response. And I'm an older sister to Marina. I'm a Gen X. I'm a Gen X person, and I can tell you for a fact that there's the unlearning and the relearning, so that you really live, and actually you get what you deserve in terms of the business, the pricing that you want, the products that you want to create, and working with the clients or the companies that you want to work with, and be happy, and it gives you energy every day. It it will be when you're very honest with yourself, and when you have that clarity, it will align with people's cultures. It will align with their spiritual beliefs. It will, because I had a lot of clients who would say, you're giving me, Western ideas. They're from the Middle East. You're giving me Western ideas. I'm like, no. I'm just giving you concepts. We can shape it to fit whatever is comfortable. But the concept is, it's evergreen. And I mean, anybody can use it, and then you can make it yours. So thank you, Anjad, Marina. Seriously, honestly, thank you so much for bringing another perspective to building a personal brand, building a reputation, building an image that not only gets you to where you want to be on a professional level or on a business level, but also gets you as the person to where you want to be, because it will add to you first and foremost, before to the people that you serve. So I can't thank you enough for being with us today. Thank you.
Rana, thank you so much. You've asked such incredible questions. And the fact that these questions were not sent to me before, I was just happy that when I got here, I was like super intentional. Thank you so much for the space and for asking those questions, and for helping people. This is available for everyone to learn now and to take action on it now. So appreciate it.
And there you have it. I mean, you saw how that conversation went. Marina is someone who is so creative and so strategically knowledgeable on how to work with female founders by really understanding the nuances that goes with being a female founder. Now, there's so many things in the episodes that can be used by anyone who is a founder, or who needs to re-look into how do they show up online, in person, how do they structure their business, how do they build their personal brand. But for my female founders out there, I really hope that you were able to receive the value that Marina was sharing in this conversation with me. Now, as promised, all of the details to connect with Marina will be in the show notes. You will also have links to all of her offers, from different freebies that she really that she shares with everybody, to her one-on-one sessions, even to applying for her retreats. So thank you so much for joining me this week. As always, I really hope that you have subscribed to this podcast. Please don't forget to like this episode or comment. Please give me your feedback on this. If you think this piece of material was valuable, I really hope that you can share it with someone who can benefit from this conversation. And as always, I'll see you next time. Keep making waves. Bye.